Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin. Welcome to Real Agriculture. It is mid-February, and there is so much to talk about. We have the daily tariff watch and what Donald Trump will do next. We have the race to replace Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister of Canada, and we have an election in Ontario. Premier Doug Ford says he needs a new mandate to defend the province against the Trump tariffs. A trade war will certainly impact agriculture and farmers in this province, but that's not the only issue that farmers want to see addressed in this campaign and over the next 4 years. To dig into the issues, I'm going to bring in my guest. She is Sara Wood, Vice President of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. Hi, Sara. Hey, great to have you on Real Agriculture.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, how's the cold and the snow in your part of the province? You are a chicken farmer from Mitchell, Ontario. Are the birds staying warm?
The birds are warm. The barn is nice and warm. It's warm like the sunny south. We have lots of snow. I don't think I need the let it snow sign in my front porch anymore. I think I could put it away. My husband would be happy. Don't need to push snow more anymore.
Yeah, well, as I say, I'm sure we've got some more on the way, and as I say, and we've got lots to talk about. Let's kick this off where this all started, and that is with tariffs. Doug Ford has already taken up the fight. The other leaders, Bonnie Crombie, Merritt Stiles, Mike Schreiner, say it's no reason to have an election, but they're ready to fight. From your perspective, how challenging could these tariffs be for Ontario farmers?
It's going to be a tough little while if tariffs come in. The first challenge is we don't know what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. So the uncertainty is starting to be seen. Farmers are holding off on purchasing equipment or they're rushing to purchase equipment because they don't know when the tariffs are coming. The other challenge we're seeing is that 60% of our beef and pork is processed in the States. So our farmers are going to feel the hit as it gets sent across the board for processing, and our consumers going to feel the hit when we import it back because of that value added. The other challenge is that we're seeing in the greenhouse vegetable sector is that they ship to the States over 90% of what they produce. And some of those contracts are starting to be canceled or put on pause because the processors in the States don't know what's going to happen and the farmers here in Ontario don't know what's going to happen. And so one of the big challenges we're going to see is that when ag is struggling, so do rural communities. And the consumer struggles at the grocery store because they don't know.
Yeah. So many moving parts here. Let's talk some OFA priorities for the election. For your organization, the focus is not just on farming. There's a large food component and rural development issues. Tell me how these come together.
So that comes with the strong communities and strong ag. And so we have asked for local food and agribusiness support. We want to make sure that local food and farm production is top of mind for those candidates, making sure that we can produce safe, affordable food for the consumer in Ontario and that local focus comes back to it. By spending $10 extra on local produce, that's $2.4 billion in annual GDP increase. We're already the largest GDP producer in the province of Ontario, over $50 billion. But that extra 2.4 billion would add over 10,000 jobs. That's huge. That's huge for our rural economies. That's huge for taxes. And that all just compounds because there's jobs so that they spend local.
Yeah. Let's talk about some other priorities. How about farmland preservation? Farmland, a finite resource. Only 5% of this province is arable land. You point that out in some releases here from OFA. And it's getting gobbled up at an alarming rate. What's OFA's position here? And what do you want to hear from the candidates?
Our biggest position is we're not crazy to think that there's not going to be land loss. We have land loss with development so that agriculture can continue to grow. But we want to preserve farmland by containing urban sprawl, making sure that we're intensifying and we're rezoning those areas that had large lots that maybe aren't being used. Can we intensify and put more houses in those large lots? It is easier to go up when we think of infrastructure underneath. we're losing over 319 acres of arable land a day. And so if we took all that land loss and put it in Perth County where I live, the whole county would be paved over in less than 5 years. That's scary. We're sitting in a food hub, and as we go into these tariff talks and we go into elections, one thing to remember is food sovereignty. We saw during COVID the challenges people had with accessing food, and we want to make sure that as agriculture, we can continue to produce food so that we are a food sovereign, safe country.
Hey, now the OFA stood pretty firm on Bill, 97. That was Doug Ford's, bill to carve out severances on farmland. You also pushed back on his development plans for the Greenbelt expansion. How do we assess the Premier's commitment to land preservation here?
Well, we got all the commodities together and we banded together as agriculture. Yes, we're less than 1.5% of the population, but Doug did listen, and his minister at that time, Minister Thompson, listened to us, and they ended that. They put a pause on that because those severances would have limited how much farmland could grow in the future. So could we grow and build new barns? Could we expand so that we could produce more food for our fellow citizens? Yeah. So he listened, which is all we can ask for.
Hey, let's talk about local food production. You mentioned earlier, $10 a week more if consumers in Ontario spent that much, it would generate $2.4 billion, 10,000 jobs. How could the provincial government policy, impact that and drive that growth? What do you need to see there?
We need to see policy that supports local production, ensures that regulatory burdens are looked after, encourages innovation, improves farm business capacity to manage those risks. So we saw the announcement with the risk management program being increased, which is a great win for agriculture all around. It helps to flow through those challenges with tariffs or weather challenges. We also need to see policy that helps us to deal with the labor challenges that our sector is facing. We're also losing a lot of GDP growth because the access to labor isn't there.
Hey, you mentioned the risk management program. Let's wrap this up with some notes on investing in agriculture. The subject of RMP always comes up. As you said, the Conservatives made an announcement just prior to the writ dropping there, and all parties appear to be on board. What about that successful investment that you need in rural Ontario, the physical and the social infrastructure?
Yes. So this has been a huge thing for me as a next generation farmer coming home. I see so many of my colleagues that they want to come home or stay home and farm, but their significant other isn't able to work remote because they don't have access to broadband and cell service. I worry about if an accident happens on the farm, whether I can actually call 911 because do I have enough cell coverage? And so as farmers and as the Ontario Federation, we're asking for those physical investments, just like our municipal leaders are asking. We need good roads and bridges because that allows us to ship our product to the consumer or to the processor. We need access to energy just like citizens in town. One thing I said to the Premier when I had a chance to speak with him a few months ago was that if a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company came to him and said, I don't have good internet to be able to run my business, he would jump on it. Whereas farmers, we don't promote that as much, that we are multi-million-dollar CEOs and we need internet and cell coverage just like a business in town. But the last piece is school and healthcare. To keep the next generation home to farm, they want access to schooling and healthcare and a family doctor, just like someone who lives in downtown Toronto. We don't want our children to suffer or have less access to those things because of where we live. And healthcare is such a vital part. We are so lucky that we have healthcare in Ontario, but we need to make sure that it continues to be invested in those rural communities because when an accident does happen, you don't have time to drive an hour to the local emergency department.
Yeah, for sure. So many issues that not enough people think about, especially in politics. Hey, a final thought here. With this weather, it's tough sledding on the campaign trail in rural Ontario. The election is February 27th. What issues would you like to hear? More on. From the parties over the next 2 weeks.
I want to hear them talk about local food, how they're going to invest in local food and policies that enable the farmers in Ontario to grow. I want to hear them talk about processing capacity. We are missing out on a large opportunity for value added in this province. Even on the grain side of our industry, I see so much product that gets put on a container ship, goes to another country to be processed, and is imported back to us at a higher value. Let's do that here at home. Let's be proud of what we grow and what we raise. Let's add that value here for our citizens. We need capacity to grow.
Well, some great insights, Sarah. I really appreciate you taking some time for us on a cold morning. Really appreciate you making some time for Real Agriculture.
Thanks for having me.